Hey guys, in this week's episode of Ask the Editor, we're going to go over how to use Neat Video, this great powerful tool to help clean up some of that pesky noise that may have happened, whether it was shooting in a little bit too much low light, or if you're just pushing the grade a little bit too far and you just want to kind of pull it back and clean everything up. Okay, so now that we're in our timeline, we're going to search for a clip that ends up having a little bit too much noise. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to select the clip, navigate over here to our Effects tab. You could either search for Neat Video. I have it set up right here in my favorites. It'll come up as reduce noise, so just kind of be aware of that if you're searching for it, and it'll come up in a Neat Video folder. So we'll drag it over here and add it to our clip, and then navigate over here to our effects control window. Now that we're in the effects control window, you'll see that we have three different buttons here. The first thing we're always going to do is we're always going to prepare Neat Video. This is just so it can get a frame or a still for the program to use. You're always going to have to do this whether you're building it, as you can see in this next little bubble, or if you need to adjust the Neat Video that you already have on a clip, you'll always need to hit prepare, just because it always needs to grab a new still. So after we've prepared, we're going to hit build, and this nifty window is going to pop up. This is actually Neat Video itself, the plugin within Premiere. As we can see, the first thing up is going to be the still that we had it prepare for us. It's really important to select the right still, because when we're selecting the noise, you want to have a good patch of noise that we're going to be able to isolate. It's just like kind of if you were to do some audio work and you want to remove a hiss, you want a good section of hiss so you know what to isolate. Noise is going to be the same way. When you're selecting an image, you don't want to pick a really busy image or something where there's just like a bunch of crazy stuff happening, because you won't be able to find a good patch of noise. So for this instance, we have a good patch up here where we can select. So what you're going to do is just take your cursor, drag open the window, and as you can see, it starts to go from yellow, which just means that it's not totally enough noise isolated yet, into green, which is good. That's when you start to get to where you really want to be. And if you keep dragging out, you'll see that it gets even bolder. That's just where, like I said, you want to have as much noise isolated as possible. The bigger the patch, the more bold it's going to be, the more green, the more you're good to go. Now that we've got our patch selected, what we're going to do is we're actually going to hit auto profile. This is where it's going to take this patch of noise that we've selected and make its own little profile. As you can see over here on the right, it'll actually give you a ton of information as far as what the frame size is, the pixels. It'll give you the quality of noise, actually give you how much the frequency is, how much high frequency, the mids to lows, to even like the ultra low noise that it can select. And it'll actually even give you a little histogram readout of just the color of that particular patch that you selected. The main thing that you really want to worry about right here is the quality of noise. I've always kind of thought that everything above 65 to 70%, like that's actually a really good selection. Noise, like I said, it can be fickle, especially depending on the patch or like the image. Sometimes you make it a great patch. Sometimes I've had it where the patch it looks perfect, and then all of a sudden you select it and all of a sudden we're getting 30%. So it can be a little bit fickle. If you did run into one of those instances though, say where you were at 30, don't be afraid to jump around. Try and just find these little patches where noise may live, and you may think this might be a good patch, because you never know, that quality may end up being just a little bit higher. And the higher the quality, the better we're going to be able to isolate it, and the better it's going to look at the very end. Now that our patch is selected, we've auto-profiled and we found a good quality number that we like, we're just going to jump over from this device noise profile tab to the noise filter settings tab. This is where it's going to give you basically all the controls to adjust this patch that we've selected. As we can see, everything is filtered, as in the image, the still on the right hand side over here, you'll see this little filtered image. If you click on the image, it'll go back to the original and then into filtered again once you unclick. This can show you right away what Neat Video is actually doing. It's just a good way to see right off the bat that, like, oh hey, it's already doing this much of the filtering process, so that way you can make your adjustments accordingly. So right over here in the right hand side, this is where you're going to make all of your adjustments. First, you have your quality mode, either normal, which I think is perfectly fine, or if you really think it's really noisy and you want to get rid of a lot of it, you can go into the high mode. It does work great. Believe me, it works fantastic. The problem is, and it even tells you right here in Neat Video, that it will be a little bit slower. It's just doing a little bit more processing. So as you watch it in playback, you're definitely going to need to render it out, just because it's really trying to process a lot of information in this clip. Under that, we have the radius. That's just where it takes the image that you've selected, and then it'll give you the radius around that clip to use the processing for the noise reduction. So right now we have 2, which means that there's the 2 clips before it and the 2 clips after it, and it's using those clips to process the noise reduction. Just like the quality mode, if you wanted to make it a little bit better, you could bump up that radius. You can go all the way up to 5 clips before it, 5 clips after, or you could even take the quality down a little bit to 1. 2 or 3 is usually good for me, like I said, but just like the quality mode, the higher you go, the better the processing of the noise is going to be, but just the more intensive the actual plugin is going to be on the footage. Underneath the radius, you have the advanced settings. This is where you can use noise level tuning, where Neat Video will actually adjust the noise level throughout the clip as you're watching it. It's kind of a cool automated feature, and you can actually mess with the noise level and the amount of noise that's in the clip. Underneath that, we have the dust and scratches remover. So if your shot had a little bit of dust and scratches on the lens, Neat Video can actually take that out. And same thing if you had a slower shutter, it can actually go in there and tune it so it can take some of that out as well. Those are really the only settings of Neat Video that I really use. If you wanted to really get into it, you can go over to the spatial tab and you can actually add luminance and do a little bit more artifact removal. Like I said, I think Neat Video, just using it right out the gate, kind of in its default settings, is really fantastic. But if you really wanted to get into it, the spatial filter is really great. And then if you just wanted to take a look at what you have, if you go over to the general tab over here on the right, you can just look, and again, it'll show you the frame size, the bit depth, what you've kind of selected as far as quality. And then at the very bottom, it'll actually tell you how much you're using. So again, like I said, if you go for a higher, more crazy radius, it'll actually show you how many cores of your CPU you're using and how many GPUs you'll actually be using. Lastly, before we apply it, if you look up here, just right above the temporal, the spatial general tabs, you can actually click this little floppy disk and save your preset. That way, as you go through it, you can just keep loading the preset instead of going through all the trouble of finding the drop downs and all of that. But once we do all that, and if you saved it, it's really easy. All you do is click apply and boom, it's on it. Neat Video is really great. It really does help with a lot of the noise reduction stuff that may happen, especially in just everyday low light footage. Like, it's really great with that. But like I said, just make sure to render it out because it is really intensive. Even on its base settings, it can be a little bit much for my machine. So once you start really getting into the higher settings and really trying to clean it up, you'll just need to make sure that you both render it out to watch it in playback. And depending on how much of the film it's being used on, you'll just have to make sure that you take that into consideration for export times. I hope this episode of Ask the Editor has been helpful for you. Keep submitting your questions to ask at archaiscreative.com or through our website, and let us know how we can help take your editing to the next level.